I'm joined now by the leader of the British National Party, Nick Griffin. Are we supposed to take you seriously as a party when you've got such a prominent figure who doesn't even know the date of the election?
Richard is verbally dyslexic, and he's actually quite brave to be in politics, I think. He's a good man.
But he doesn't appear to know when the election's happening.
So he's verbally and numerically dyslexic. It's a problem he's overcome, except in that clip.
Can you help us with one or two details of your presentation? You launched your manifesto yesterday with a man dressed as St George. You're followed around sometimes on the streets by a man dressed in army uniform. Is he a real soldier?
Well, St George yesterday, because it was St George's Day, it's a special day for the English. No, the chap who's been there in army fatigues, they're his army fatigues from the first Gulf, because he served there. He's there in that uniform to attract attention to the fact that we're the only major party saying we shouldn't be in Afghanistan. It's a war that's got nothing to do with Britain.
And your party election broadcast, which goes out on Monday, shows you sitting at a desk with Winston Churchill over one shoulder and a row of medals in a glass case over your other shoulder. Are those your medals?
They're not. They're the medals of the father of the gentleman whose house I was filmed in.
So what are they doing there?
They're always there. He won them in the First and the Second World War.
Well, what are you doing appropriating them?
I'm not appropriating. They're in his house. We're filming it there. We are a patriotic party. The other parties have betrayed Britain. Time and time again, I get veterans of the Second World War coming up to me and said, if I'd known what the Labour Party and the Tories were going to do with Britain, I wouldn't have bothered, nor would my mates.
Some of those, of course, are World War I medals.
Indeed they are, because his father fought in the First and the Second World War. Remarkable man.
But you yourself haven't won any medals?
I haven't served in the forces, no.
And you're just, therefore, borrowing them for reasons of presentation?
Well, I've been to Wootton Bassett, and I've seen how awful the repatriation ceremonies are. I want to stop that war. And we have to get across that fact. The fact that we're now talking about war and the army and so on, it's done its job, because it raises the issue to the British public. There's a party which wants us out of Afghanistan right now to save lives of our boys.
You ever done any military service?
I've been in the Army Cadets, and then I was in the TA, yes.
Boy Scouts, anything like that?
No.
Now, you claim in this manifesto of yours that within 50 years, well before 50 years, indigenous British people will be in a minority in this country. Can you define indigenous, please?
Yep. English, Scots, Irish, Welsh, people who've been here overall, in fact their ancestry for thousands of years. It's fairly obvious. You wouldn't ask that question if I was a New Zealand Maori. You know exactly what indigenous meant. Why are we different?
Well, I mean, for example, if you were a Russian Jew who came here to escape one of the pogroms at the start of the 20th century, was that indigenous British?
They're completely assimilated with indigenous British. We were then, you were talking about 40,000 escaped the pogroms. That's not what immigration is now.
I'm just trying to define what this endangered minority or soon-to-be minority is. If you were a Huguenot who came here taking refuge from the French.
They're also completely assimilated, but these aren't our figures.
They're not indigenous.
In fact,
I'm trying to get what you define as a true British person.
It's anyone who effectively is so melded into the majority English-British population that nobody knows, nobody cares.
So the matter of their skin colour is neither here nor there?
No, that is, because one of the symptoms of being English or Scottish or Irish or Welsh is being what the BBC would call white.
Right. So you cannot be British and be black.
I didn't say that. Yes, you can be, of course.
You can.
There's two meanings to British. There's the civic sense and there's the ethnic sense. Right. Ethnically, you cannot be English, if you're Chinese, for instance, obviously. But someone who's perhaps been born here, whose parents came here from the West Indies 40, 50 years ago, of course, civically, they are British. But ethnically, they're not.
But your real problem is with Muslims, isn't it?
I think the whole of the West has a real problem with Islam, yeah.
And you talk about how we're going to be swamped by them because they're breeding faster than white people breed.
It's not just that they have more children than the other populations do. They're also a much younger population. Their population is statistically growing at 10 times the rate of any other group in the country.
And what is your problem with that?
Well, I respect women's rights, and the Quran says that women are not equal to men. I believe in democracy and free speech. The Quran doesn't allow it, and everywhere that Islam goes, it creates problems, terrible problems.
You propose that we shall have no more Islamic immigration to this country?
No more immigration at all.
But specifically you're concerned with Islamic
We're specifically
immigration.
concerned with Islam, yeah.
Right. But clearly that is not going to solve what you see as the problem, is it?
Correct.
So what are you going to do about it in the unlikely event you get power?
Well, we're not going to get power. What we're trying to do at present is to create the debate that this country needs. Because you tell me, what are we going to do when we have in our midst an ideology which doesn't accept our way of running the world and which intends to change it?
But
what are we going to do when Turkey comes into the EU, another 75 million Muslims?
But let's be honest about it, and I don't know why you're not being honest about it. Your policies will not solve the problem that you identify, correct?
Well, correct, which is why we have,
Right.
in the manifesto, we're talking in terms of allocating £18 billion to voluntary resettlement grants to help to ease this problem.
In that case, by your own admission, you are not a party claiming to deal with the problem of immigration, because your approach to this would make no difference.
Yes, it would. First of all, because at present they are coming in very large numbers. The first thing to do is to shut the door, not have point systems or anything. Shut the door.
But they're
We're the only
outbreeding
party saying that.
white people, according to you.
They're outbreeding Sikhs and everybody else as well. Yes, as a matter of fact.
All right, let's look at one thing that you do propose. You propose several things. For example, you want to bring back capital punishment.
Yep. Not for everybody. Only for murderers and people who really deserve it.
Any particular method?
I imagine the old traditional British method, instant hanging.
Like the gas chamber or anything like that?
No, that's the American way.
No funny foreign things like the guillotine?
No, absolutely not.
Fine. And what about this idea of a penal colony that you'd have somewhere down near Antarctica on South Georgia, I believe?
Well, here I slightly agree with Nick Clegg, bizarrely enough, when he said that we shouldn't be keeping people in prisons as a rule because they don't do anything useful, they're academies of crime. So we say that ordinary prisoners should be out there in the community, electronically tagged, actually doing serious work for their keep. But there are some people, murderers, rapists and so on, so dangerous you can't do that, so send them to South Georgia to earn their keep there.
How many people do you imagine would be in this penal colony in South Georgia?
I don't think we'd need many thousands before other people got the message that being a criminal in Britain is an uncomfortable thing to be.
And these criminals who are not in prison but are tagged out in the community, what are they doing?
Well, things such as we've got a policy to introduce fibre optic cabling through all rural areas. That is going to need a lot of trench digging. That sounds an ideal thing for a gang of criminal scum to do something useful to pay back what they've done for society.
So they sort of replace British Telecom or something, would they? Is that the idea?
No, that's such a huge scheme that it can't be afforded by British Telecom. Why do we have to lock people in prison where they're looked after better than many old age pensioners, and they sit there for 23 hours a day in luxurious idleness? They should get out and work.
Okay, Nick Griffin, thank you very much. Thank you.